what's up? This is Patrick. Welcome to episode 58 of the Double ETF podcast, Everything Except the Football. I hope you guys are doing great. So give me just 2 minutes to explain what's going on. This conversation was supposed to be edited in the next podcast, the full year in review. But then I realized that it could stand on its own, and I didn't really want to have 2.5 hour podcast anyway. So I decided to keep it simpler and have 2 separate episodes. So this one today with Nick Bambach, and the other one that will be out in a couple of days, the 2023 year in review. So I hope you enjoy. We couldn't use Zencaster for this one, so we had to use Zoom. So unfortunately, that meant only one audio track for both of us. So we talk over each other maybe a couple of times, but nothing bad, honestly. And the sound quality isn't as good as I would like, but should be okay. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Nick Bambach, and you will have a full year in review with the whole gang in a few days. So happy holidays, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right, so we are traveling back in time today. We are recording this a couple of days before the regular guests. I mean, my guest tonight is a regular guest, but you know what I mean. It's a mess. It's the end of the year. Everyone is confused. So here tonight, I have with me Nick Bambach. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Patrick. It is almost Christmas time, and I am so happy to end 2023 and go into 2024, which is hopefully a better year.
Amen to that. And actually, I wanted to ask you a question before we jump into movies. Well, actually, it is related to movies. I wanted to ask you, how would you qualify the movie year 2023? Do you think it was a good year for movies?
That's an interesting question because that's something I get asked quite a bit from people that I'm friends with and the people in my movie club and people that I know. And for me, 2023 is one of the strongest years in recent memory in terms of the quality of movies that are coming out. And I'm going to talk about quite a number of them, but I feel like it's an interesting year because when it started, it did not look all that promising. And I was like a little worried, but then the summer came and we had Barbenheimer, which forever is in my heart because I just love the fact that people got so excited with 2 movies that really revolutionarily changed movie going. Because a lot of people, if you remember, Patrick, even like a year ago, it was very doom and gloom for the box office. Like people were like, are we even going to have movie theaters anymore?
And except for Top Gun Maverick, it was bleak.
Very bleak. And people were very much not sure if they wanted to get out of the house and not stream as much content that was readily available to them during the pandemic. And like you mentioned with Top Gun Maverick, that was like the one exception in terms of like just this humongous cultural phenomenon that just came out of nowhere. And I really think that the summer kicked off with Barbenheimer, and Barbie is now the biggest movie, I think, in Warner Brothers history. And Oppenheimer grossed a ton of money as well. I think like $700 or $800 million, which is sort of unheard of for like a biopic about a historical figure. Like those movies usually don't do that well. Like they usually turn a profit, but they're not usually like Marvel adaptation level big of successes. And then we're getting into award season. I'm going to talk about some of them with some of my picks, but I thought this was one of the strongest years. And I think, what's really good about this year too, is that there's so many movies that are contention for like the Oscars or the Golden Globes or all these major award shows. And I'm going to be really honest, there's no front runner. Like usually every year it feels like, oh, there's one movie or one performance that is just going to win every category. It's like, it's boring. And to me, it reminds me of like 2019, where you had the year Parasite and 1917 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you don't know what's going to win Best Picture or any of the other categories. And I love that the field is so wide open. And that's just a testament to just how great the movies are that these filmmakers and studios are producing. And when people say, oh, film is dead, or people have short attention spans or people don't want to go to the movies. I feel like this year kind of reignited my love of movies and maybe remind myself like this is why I like to go to the movies.
Good.
So I think it was
Good.
an amazing year for film, quite honestly.
I'm still not sure myself, to be honest. Like, I know that you mentioned Barbenheimer. I think that had it not been for those two movies together, I'm not sure it would have been a good year. Marvel movies tanked, and superheroes in general, they tanked hard this year. There's been a few good movies, of course, but I'm still figuring it out whether it was a good year, I think.
Well, you know what it is, Patrick, in many ways, is that, and I would love to hear the other guest perspectives on this, but if you think about it, this is a year that really has told Hollywood that there's no guaranteed successes for
That's a good point.
franchises anymore. So
Yeah.
there's some that will always be successful or have like a really big reach, like Guardians of the Galaxy 3, or even the John Wick movie that
Mhm.
came out this year, just like they do really well. But then there's a lot of franchise movies, and I'm thinking like the latest Indiana Jones movie or the Ant-Man and the Wasp,
Yes.
Quadromedia,
Yeah.
or even Fast 10. Domestically, it's one of the lowest box office in the US for the Fast and Furious franchise. It makes way more money globally, like
Yeah.
internationally. But it's really interesting how like franchises used to be such big guaranteed hits and they would always be like number one or the top movies of the year. And really looking at the list really quick, Barbie is number one and Super Mario Brothers and Oppenheimer and well, fuck Sound of Freedom, but you know, that's another story.
Yes.
And also Taylor Swift also helped save the box office too with the Swifties, with the Air Swerve. I mean, that made like $180 million. That's unheard of for a concert movie.
Wow.
Tay-Tay knows how to bring the Swifties to the theater. And that is one of the funnest experiences I've had in my life.
Okay.
So, sorry. But
That's
yes.
okay. That's okay. And it might be that some franchises are running out of steam. Like, I saw the latest Mission Impossible as well. It was okay, but it wasn't as good as Fallout, you know?
You kind of know for the fact that it's part one too, because that was Dead Reckoning, right?
Yes.
There's going to be a part two, which I liked it, but I agree, and it's very bloated too. It's 2.5,
Yes.
45. It's come
Yeah.
on.
And also, personally, I'm kind of getting sick of the AI is taking over trope.
It's tiresome. And
Yes.
then like even like the Marvels, which is really I think now the lowest box office for any Marvel movie. I don't even think it crossed the $100 million mark domestically, which is really that's
Jesus.
put it like this. Like Blue Beetle made as much money as the Marvel,
Wow.
which is like not good. We're seeing also a lot of genre movies that are really prospering into, you know, horror and just other genres that usually don't get afforded that. But even a movie like Elemental, which is a Pixar movie that only
Mhm.
made 150 million domestically, that
Yeah.
didn't do good either. And I think the problem is that these studios are they say like, oh, it's gonna be on Disney Plus in like 3 months. Families aren't gonna want to spend X amount of dollars, go into the theater, get popcorn, go see the movie if
Yeah.
it's going to be on Disney Plus or Max or Paramount Plus or whatever in like 2 or 3 months. It's like, how do I say this nicely? Like they're part of the problem too. And I think that, you know,
You
we're
don't have
seeing,
to
like,
say it nicely. You can say it
well, I guess I could.
whichever way you want.
I think like that, you know, they can't have it both ways. And I
Yeah.
feel that the problem is even Oppenheimer, it's not going to be streaming for a long time on any of these channels. So like it's selling out the Blu-rays, which is unheard of in 2023. So I think we're seeing this year too, and we know this is a good year when we're valuing original content. And also,
Mhm.
I didn't think Barbie was going to be the biggest movie by like a
Yeah.
lot,
I don't think anyone saw it coming.
but we're living in a Barbie world, I guess.
Yes. Woo.
Life fantastic, I guess. No kidding.
But you mentioned Elemental and Pixar. I think that also shows that, from my point of view, Pixar might not be the guaranteed quality that it once was.
They've lost a lot of steam in the
Yeah.
last decade.
Yeah. And I think we might see a bit of that in A24 as well.
I think so too. Okay, so my hot take, and then
Please.
Woody or anyone could yell at me for it, but I feel like A24, I like it, but it's movie studio for hipsters who basically want to have self-masturbatory kind of like, oh, we're so edgy and quirky and original. And I like a lot of the movies that they produce, granted, but I feel like, okay, like when is the bubble gonna burst on them? Like you can't be like that forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People are transitioning from superhero movies to something else. And for a while, that might be A24-ish kind of
They did
movies,
make
maybe.
Everything Everywhere All at Once, which won Best Picture, and then
That's
The
true.
Whale. So like they really swept last year's Oscars because they had that, The Whale, and maybe something else that were they won like double digit number of Oscars, which is pretty rare for a studio across multiple movies. But
That's
like
true.
it's what's hip right now. But yeah, I'm curious if they can keep up that momentum. But I will say they do get a lot of really great talents and directors like Sofia Coppola did Priscilla. And I don't know if you saw the Nicolas Cage movie Dream Scenario. That's A24. And Iron Claw, that's going to come out. That's A24. So
Yep. Actually, I'm a terrible host because there are so many movies that I wanted to see that I ran out of time this year, and I could do a top 5 of those actually. But that's
well, I'm a loser and I see so many movies at the theater.
that's not what I said. I didn't say that.
Oh, I did.
So yeah, speaking of top 5, we can talk about actual top 5 for movies. What do you have for us?
Sure. So my first movie is Poor Things. I saw that
Sorry, so that would be number 5 or number 1?
number 5.
Okay, awesome.
I want to create the suspense patch.
No, please,
Like,
please.
so people are just like, what the hell is he going to pick? Or they're just be like, oh God, he picked that. No, Poor Things is number 5 on my list. I saw it last weekend and just 2 or 3 sentences. I was going to a wrestling show on Saturday. And on the way, I kept checking for movie times for Poor Things because it came out on December 8th, but it never went beyond 4 cities. And I was like, oh my God, when am I going to see this movie? It's probably going to be 2024. And then I was like, okay, I'm going into the Dallas area anyway to go to the wrestling television tape it or whatever. And I saw that a few of the movie theaters had it. And then there was one that was like 10 miles from the arena. So like I left my apartment early in the afternoon to go to the movie theater and then go straight from there to the wrestling taping. And it was worth it. Yorgos Lanthimos, I believe I pronounced his name correctly. He made some really bold, radical movies. I actually was in the room when he went to, I believe, one of the film festivals in Ohio when I was a graduate student when they were showing The Lobster because he really wasn't really super well known beyond Dogtooth at that time. So he was still like,
That's
you
true.
know, more of an up and coming director. And I was in a Q&A with a few of my friends and he's just as weird as you would imagine, but I like him. He's a very absurdist, experimental, playful, fantastical filmmaker. And he's very singular as well. And like, you know, one of his movies because of the way he creates these dark comedies that are kind of like horror movies and psychological films as well. But anyway, I really enjoyed Poor Things. Emma Stone is fantastic in that movie. She carries the whole movie. If you have a weird, sick, twisted sense of humor, like I know you do, Patrick, you'll probably get a kick out of it. It's basically Lanthimos' Frankenstein. That's the best way to sort of put it.
That's true.
And Mark Ruffalo is fantastic in it. Willem Dafoe's good at it. And I feel like it's one of those movies where like I've never been in a movie theater experience where I'm just like, what the fuck am I watching? But I can't stop watching because it's just also entertaining and it's unpredictable. And I like movies that are quirky that are made by major studios. And like the sheer fact that Searchlight Pictures or Fox or whatever they want to call themselves, I just love the fact that they financed this movie because it just shows these artists like Lanthimos can make these bold, radical statements that just defy logic or expectations. But I think we need more of those voices in a mainstream environment. And I can't recommend it enough. So if you get a chance, I highly recommend that. So that's my number 5. So my number 4 pick is Anatomy of a Fall, which is a French movie that came out. It won the Palme d'Or Cannes. I know, Patrick, you've seen it. I really enjoyed it. I thought that Sandra Huller, is that how you pronounce it? Is it Huller? I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm terrible at pronunciations, guys, everyone. But she's fantastic in it. And it has one of the best needle drops of any song that you would not expect to see in a French movie like this. And I won't spoil it because you got to see it to believe it. Good courtroom drama thriller that you just don't know where it's going. And what I liked about it is that it fuses English and German and French, and it felt very realistic to me. Like it wasn't just in French, which I kind of really enjoyed, like the transnational film qualities of it. And I think it will be a big award contender at the Oscars and other awards.
Could be, yeah. So yeah, so that's Zandra Hüller. And she was in Tony Erdmann from a couple of years ago. I don't know if you saw that one. That was another weird, quirky movie.
She's in a weird, quirky movie that's about to come out. That's also a award contender that's not out yet. It's The Zone of Interest. That's Jonathan.
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, my God. I want to see that so badly.
Yeah, that should be something.
It's going to be all sorts of fucked up, but I'm all for that.
Absolutely.
As I praise Poor Things to the Hills. So
yes.
That's my number 4 pick. My number 3 pick is Killers of the Flower Moon. That's the Scorsese movie. Scorsese's my all-time favorite director. I've said this multiple times. I adore Scorsese. He is the greatest living film director alive. There's no question. And if you don't think so, you're wrong. But it's just one of the best movies of the year. He doesn't give a shit about your bladder, though, because that movie, seeing it in an IMAX theater, it's like almost 3.5 hours. But it's such an important movie. It talks about Native American murders and these unspoken crimes that were committed against them by these businesses and people.
Rich white people being assholes. That's the story of the world.
Or the story of Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm kidding, Leo. We love you. But it's such a well-acted movie, such a well-directed movie. I mean, Scorsese is just obsessed with making 4-hour epics like The Irishman now. And he did Casino and other movies that are super long. But he's just such a masterful storyteller. And the performances are fantastic. And part of what I loved about this movie in hindsight is sad to see now is Robbie Robertson passed away. Mm-hmm. And the music that he composed for this movie was so beautiful. And I think he will posthumously win for his score because it is really what I think is the magic ingredient. And it really made me sad because, of course, he was in the band and he was Scorsese's musical collaborator for almost all of his movies, or the majority of his movies in the last 40 years or so. So it's almost like the end of an era, but it's such a wonderful movie. And if you watch at home, break it up like The Irishman, you'll do fine. Mm-hmm. But yes, I highly recommend it. My number 2 movie is The Holdovers. It's a good, feel-good movie. It's Paul Giamatti. He has one of the best performances of his career. And I feel like this is the type of movie that I just don't think they make anymore, which is a good comedy drama that's not too funny, but not too sad, but it has that sweet spot where it's like just right. And the movie is just it's so entertaining. It has such a great concept, and it's really returned to form for Alexander Payne because he had a few missteps.
Yes.
And it reminds me so much of like when he did About Schmidt and Election and Sideways. The performances from the cast are so good. Like Divine Joy Randolph is fantastic. She's a front runner for supported actress. And Dominic Syria, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. It's his film debut.
I don't remember. Sorry.
But it's a Christmas movie too. So it's like the movie is like the equivalent of a warm hug. And I just really like it. And these characters are so fascinating and so multifaceted. Like I said, I don't think studios don't make a lot of good, reliable comedies anymore like they used to, I think. And this kind of gives me a little bit of hope that maybe they'll come back. I don't know, but great movie. And my number 1 movie I talked about a little bit before was Oppenheimer. I think that is just, oh my God, seeing that at a theater, it's one of the most spellbinding things I've seen ever. The sound techniques, the visuals, like Christopher Nolan, I usually did not like a lot, but I've grew to really admire him. And the dude is so masterful as a director. And I hope that he gets his flowers at the Oscars because he directs the holy hell out of this movie. And Cillian Murphy's fantastic. And also Robert Downey Jr. And another movie that's super long, but there's a reason to justify its length because it's just such a grandiose life and story and career. And he's just so fascinating. And that movie there's nothing better that I've seen this year that I was like, damn, this is like the summer of Barbenheimer. So maybe that's part of it. But yeah, shout out to that movie. And I didn't see other movies that might make the list yet. So like I didn't see like Past Lives. That's one that
Yep.
it's been streaming
Hmm.
forever, but I just haven't gotten around to yet. But it's going to be on Max apparently in January. So fingers crossed on that. And then Maestro, I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen Iron Claw or Zone of Interest, or there's a few others, but those are just some of the ones that like they might rank higher.
I think Maestro will be on Netflix in just a couple of days, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so.
I think it's actually going to be on tomorrow.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So it's like perfect. And I'm looking forward to it. Bradley Cooper, I like Bradley Cooper. I'm going to diss him for a sec. He is really gunning for that Oscar this year. There's always one actor every year or every few years where like it's like obvious they really are wanted an Oscar. And I feel like he's just in that zone right now. He's at MoMA introducing this movie. He's at like every press junket. He is interviewing for publications that he usually doesn't give a shit about. Homeboy really wants that Oscar. That's all I'm going to say.
Trying to catch up, since the strike is over now. So he is, working overtime, I guess.
He is conducting interviews. I always waited for that.
Yes. Okay, so
those
that's
are some of my favorites of the year.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you, Nick. Okay, so let's switch gears and talk about TV. Nick, what do you have for TV?
I've been watching a little bit more TV than I normally have in the past, but this was a good year for TV. First one I just want to shout out is the Bear season 2. Oh, so good. The first season was good, but this one was great. And it's just, I know I've thrown out this word a lot, but it's just so masterfully told. And these arcs are just so well thought out. That one episode, by the way, where they have, is it Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving dinner? That is the most stressful episode, I think, of any TV show that I think I've ever watched in my entire life. And John Mulaney's in it. And I was like, what? Like, John Mulaney's in this episode? I loved it. And there's a Taylor Swift moment for the Swifties out there.
Oh, yeah.
That is really, really great. So I love these characters. I can't wait for season 3 next year. It's one of the best shows that I've seen in a while. Part of what I like about these characters is that you don't know where they're going to go. And I think that's a beautiful thing to see because a lot of times you see these character progressions so obviously or so plainly told. And I like the fact that we don't know where Carney's going to go or these other characters. And I think that that's utterly fantastic. The next show that I like, and this is in no order, by the way, because like TV is a little bit more like fluid where I'm like, I can't really objectively rank them, but the next one is Shrinking on Apple TV Plus with Jason Segel and Harrison Ford. I love this show. It's a great mix of comedy and drama. I always will forever watch anything that Jason Segel does. There's something about him that I always like. And some of my favorite movies were like Forget Sarah Marshall, I Love You Man, and The Muppets even was fantastic. He's one of those actors that like I don't think he gets enough credit for being a good actor, and this really showcased his range. And I just really love the fact that we see these therapists and shrinks who are so fucked up, but yet they have to help people and they're going through all these problems. And I just really enjoyed it. And Harrison Ford, I don't know why he doesn't do more comedies because I think he was actually really good in that role. I'm just glad that he got to showcase his more comedic side because he's usually very stoic, like Star Wars or Indiana Jones or Air Force One. And I like this side of him a lot.
Yeah, he can do deadpan, gruff guy really, really well.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes.
He's so good. And that whole show is good. And it's coming back for a second season. And I think next year. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. My third pick is Succession season 4. Anyone who knows me knows that like I love Succession. That's like I think the best show of the 21st century, maybe. I don't know, maybe all time, but like it's just the show that I rewatched at least twice because it's just so well done and the performances are so good. These characters, they're such a bunch of assholes and they're privileged and they're horrible people, but I can't stop watching them be terrible people. And Jeremy Strong and Oh my God, what is his name? Brian
Culkin?
Cox.
Oh yeah,
Brian
Brian
Cox.
Cox, yes, and
And
Rory Culkin, is that it?
Roy Culkin
Yes.
and the one who plays Shiv.
Sarah Snoop.
Yes. Oh, and I love that. Well, I don't want to spoil anything really about that show, but I love the way it ends because it's kind of sort of bleak and I don't know how else you would end a show like that. And I think it's one of the best TV shows I've ever watched and one that I revisited even after the last episode. I rewatched it over the summer and I was like, wow, this is just masterclass in storytelling. And I like the fact too that it's only 4 seasons. Like it doesn't feel like it's dragging at any point. You know, like some of the other shows where it's like they're on like season 12. Like how is this possible?
Yeah.
And I like that a lot of TV shows are taking that route now. Like they kind of have at least finale in mind. Like it's not like they don't know where it's going. They kind of know where it's gonna like guess the road is gonna end.
Yeah.
But how they get there maybe changes it. But yes, Succession season 4, 1,000 times yes. And then Poker Face on Peacock was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that show. Natasha Lyonne is another actor I really admire and like. So likable, so funny, so quirky. I have followed her whole career, and this is a good showcase of her talents. And I love the fact that it's almost like I would say like a contemporary version of what was that show with Peter Falk?
Columbo.
Columbo?
Yep.
Yes. It's pretty much like that. And each episode is kind of like its own separate movie or separate thing. Like there's very little that's connected to one another besides her character. And I just thought that show is very unique. And I think that will be coming back for another season, but I don't remember.
I think so, yeah.
And Rianne Johnson, who did the Knives Out movies,
Yes.
he's the executive producer.
Yes, that's true.
I think he directed one of the episodes or a few of the episodes.
Yeah.
It's really well done sort of miniseries. And I love the fact that we see so many famous actors just pop in and out of this story.
Mhm.
Like you see Adrian Brody, you see the guy from The Big Bang Theory, Simon Helberg, Ellen Barkin. Yeah, it's just a really fantastic show. So
Okay.
highly recommend Poker Face. And then the last one that I want to recommend is The Curse. Even though it's not done yet, oh my God. I know I talked about this last episode, but like Nathan Fielder is another actor like Jason Segel that I just will watch anything he's in. Have you watched Nathan For You, by the way?
And no, I there's something about that guy not for me.
Oh, he's so. Oh, you missed it out, Patrick. It's so funny. But Emma Stone, who was in Poor Things I talked about earlier, she's in this show. And one of the Safdie brothers, I believe Benny. And it's just, I don't even think it's even close to being done. I think there's like at least 3 or 4 more episodes left of it. But it's just so well made and so well done. And it's disturbing and it's weird and it's darkly humored, but I can't stop watching it. It's like, it's a very uncomfortable show in many ways. Like, but it's just one that I'm like, let's put this on and see how much more uncomfortable I can get. And yeah, it's a good fusion of those. And for listeners who may not know, it's about like this couple basically who is trying to start like this HGTV like show. And they're basically trying to figure out how to get rid of a curse that's thrown on Nathan Fielder's character and all the events that happen after he is quote unquote cursed. So,
yeah. And actually, okay, so that's your list. Actually, I expected to see something in there and I'm surprised that it's not there. Maybe you forgot about it or maybe you had like a blank. The last season of Barry.
Okay, so I have not watched that yet.
Oh.
So
okay,
show,
I'll shut up.
Oh
okay.
no, never
okay,
shut
because
up. It's your show.
Because if I were you, I would dump Poker Face and stick Barry in there instead.
Yeah, that's
no hesitation.
Show I was gonna watch during winter break because TV I'm much pickier on. I can't just get into any TV show, and that's a show I adore with all my heart. I've talked about it in the past. Like, it's just,
and that's why I was so surprised, but now I know why, so that it makes sense.
And you know what happened too? Now that I think about it, that was on the same time as Succession.
Yes,
I think
it was.
And like, I just moved, and I was so busy, and I'm thinking Succession is like my everything. Like I have to watch that, and I didn't want to vote. Put it like this: I couldn't split my time with Succession and Barry. And it sounds horrible because I love Barry so much, but
Have you been able to avoid all spoilers?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
On any social media, I like
Perfect.
blocked Barry.
Okay.
And Barry could include, I guess, Obama or Barry Bonds,
Yes.
like Barry Jenkins or whatever.
Barry
But
Manilow.
yeah, for the Thanalos.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to miss out on all your Manilow news, It's a
Well,
price to pay.
the show at the Copacabana,
There you go.
No, I'm gonna watch that, and I'll get back to you after New Year because,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
I forgot about it a little. Not that I forgot about it, but there's other things that come up, and then you're like, oh shit, that ended like how many months
Okay.
ago?
Because it might be on my list, and in that case, I'll try and avoid all spoilers. So I'll try and keep that in mind. Perfect.
No, I'm so sorry. Now I feel like a party pooper.
No, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Just wanted to make sure that it wasn't an oversight or, okay, just wanted to
Yeah,
double check. Perfect.
and I love the fact too with Barry, it's only 30 minutes, so like you could easily binge it in
Yes.
like 2 days and you're done,
Yeah,
kind of.
that's
Even
true.
one day you could.
Yes.
That's too dark though for me because like that's a great show, but I don't think I could do more than like 3 episodes.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack, even though it's only 30 minutes per ep, there's lots of stuff in there. So yeah, if you binge it in one day, you might miss out a little bit, but let's say 2 days, I'd say.
I'm definitely going to do that because that has been on my list. So
okay, so that's TV. Thank you, Nick. All right, so music now. Nick, what do you have for music?
So I have 5 songs that I like from this year, and they're in no particular order. Just going to list a few of them and say a few things. Olivia Rodrigo's Get Him Back is my first choice. It's a pop rock anthem. And I think Olivia is one of the best modern pop stars. And I feel like her music is of substance and quality. And for someone so young, she's so talented. And it has this kind of rockin' chorus, and it's a really great song on her sophomore album. So I can't recommend that song highly enough. My next pick is Doja Cat's Paint the Town Red. She's a rapper, and she had her first solo #1 with this song. And it samples Dionne Warwick's Walk On By.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a catchy song. And I like the way that it uses this very canonical classic song that everyone knows and kind of puts like a more modern spin on it. And really quick random fact, when I went to the wrestling show on Saturday, I didn't realize this, that they had it in the one of the bumpers or commercials. They used that song with the female wrestlers in like a music video like thing that Doja Cat does with the female professional wrestlers. And I was like, what? It makes sense, kind of, because I guess her label is the same one that I guess uses the professional wrestling, or there's some kind of connection there. But when you have like that moment of like a sporting event or a concert, you're like, wait, really? So I like that song a lot. Miley Cyrus's Flowers, that was one of the first songs to come out in 2023. I don't really like Miley Cyrus a ton. Her music is very much hit or miss for me. I don't know why, but this is a very catchy song, and it was a huge hit at the beginning of the year. It was #1 for a while, and I like the fact that it's just a good 3-minute love pop song that just, you can't get the chorus out of your head. And I'm always a proponent of the 3-minute pop song. I don't think that people get that how important that is. And I think there's like an art to it. So
yeah, I know what you mean. I don't disagree.
yeah, like I don't think a song needs to be like 8 minutes for it to be good. And I don't think it needs to be 5 necessarily. But like,
unless it's prog rock bullshit. What's up, and bags?
Hey, a bag. And if it was like, yes, it would be like an 18-minute version of Flower.
There you go.
No, I'm kidding. And I wonder if the Grateful Dead covered it. No, I'm kidding. My next pick is a country song. It's Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves. I Remember Everything. These are two of my favorite artists in country music right now. And I love non-traditional they are. Like they're very progressive. And what I like about the song is that it's very lovely and it's very, I guess, traditional. So it's like something you wouldn't necessarily expect from them. But their rendition of it together is just simply beautiful. And I always look for anything that those two do together or separate. And I just really enjoyed it. And it's one of the few songs, especially from the country genre, to debut at #1 on the Hot 100 here in the US, which is pretty rare. And this has been a really strong year for country music, even though Morgan Wallen, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, he sucks and he's terrible, both as a person and as an artist. But it's been a big year for country music. Like Luke Combs had that big hit of Fast Car, and but I like this one. I value originality and like artists who like I think are actually doing something good. And this is a good example of that. I like them a lot. My last song is Lana Del Rey's A&W.
Mm-hmm.
This is my prog rock bullshit pick because this is like about 7 minutes, but it's everything I love about Lana Del Rey. It's sad and it's also well told and it's well written, and her melodies and just everything about it just comes together so well and so beautifully. And I think she's such an underrated pop talent, and she's been around over a decade now, but she's been just killing it lately since that Norman fucking Rockwell album, which is literally the title of the album.
Okay.
But everything she does is amazing, and I just think that she is definitely on track to hopefully win her first ever Grammy. Which I was going to say that one of my friends wrote to her on Instagram that I don't know if you know this, Patrick, about the Grammys. They went genderless, so it's like instead of like best male pop vocal performance, and best female pop vocal performance, they made it just best pop vocal performance, for example, about a decade ago. And
so they have half as many awards to give, so better for the budget.
Better for the budget, but like a lot of artists won because of those gender categories, like in female pop or male rock or whatever.
Okay.
And she always submitted them, I guess, as pop. And, you know, it's really hard to stand out when the Grammys like Adele, Bruno Mars, like it's hard, right? No matter how talented Lana is. And then I think she went for alternative this year. And then one of my friends wrote to her on Instagram, and when the song came out, and he was like, you really should put it in the alternative category because you probably would win, or at least like have a better shot at it. And she released a video about a month or two ago when the nominations came out, and she mentioned his post like very subconsciously. Was like, I read some of the comments and I saw one that mentioned that, and I never knew that you had to actually submit to specific categories, which is like fascinating because artists don't know how their music is selected or given to the voters to vote on.
I thought it would have been like the committee, quote unquote, to decide. So that's the artists themselves. Interesting.
So the artists have to submit for the genre ones, like which like their management usually has to deal with, which I thought was like endlessly fascinating because if that's confusing to the artists, their fans would never understand that.
Yeah.
For example, Olivia Rodrigo, she's nominated like in multiple genre categories, but because she submitted or her management submitted in multiple genres. But if you're going just for pop or just for rock, that's why you don't get considered in other ones because you're not, you know, putting yourself out there for those categories, which I thought fascinating. But that's why I ended with the Lana Del Rey quip, because I thought it was like, that's a very amazing that she kind of shouted out one of my friends. And I was like, that's amazing.
Nice.
And she's amazing. So,
all right. Sounds good. All right. So thank you, Nick. And so, yeah, since you won't be with us when we record later this week, where can we reach you online?
Well, I'm very sad, by the way, I'm not going to record with our other friends because I really miss all of them. So I was very sad. But I thank you, Patrick, for letting me be talking to you.
Pleasure.
But you can find me at Rock and Retropod on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And you could, of course, find me on Letterboxd, which is at ND Bambach, in case if you're ever interested in all the movies that I watch, for better or worse. And you just want to see some hot takes that are trying to strive for objectivity. That's the profile to follow.
All right. Nice. Thank you very much. And we'll see you with the other folks on the next recording, I guess.
Yes. I'll see you guys on the other side, which sounds really like grim because it's next year.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, that's true.
But I look forward to that when that happens.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick.